Hey guys, it's Skybird, and today we're going to be taking a look at a prototype here on the computer from 2007. And this is one that I've known about for a while. It's a really interesting one. It's a poster specifically, so that might give it away. But I also wanted to mention too, someone had been sending me some pictures of some bootleg items on Discord, specifically some bootleg Bionicle pieces, and honestly I've been blown away by it. I want to make a video on these separately, just because there's so much to cover, and I'm actually supposed to be getting a bootleg in the mail tomorrow. I ended up picking up for free, unfortunately missing its mask. Apparently, we'll see. I am going to cross my fingers so hard that it has the mask, but I don't think it does. That said, with that out of the way, let's get right on into it. So, today we are looking at the Kalmah prototype poster. Now, I don't know whose hands this poster is in. I don't know who owns it or anything, but I do know that I have seen this poster kind of floating around for a while now, and I think it's so fascinating because, first of all, this is pretty clearly late in the development of the Kalmah character, but obviously early enough that they didn't have any new molds at this point in time, right? Or even have the idea of what those molds were going to look like down, right? So you can see a lot of kit bashed pieces in here, some identifiable, some that literally escaped me until today. I didn't even notice the Nokama Metru blade pieces, which are a lovely piece, by the way. But those blade pieces attached to the front of the Hordika foot here, which I don't know how that completely went just completely off my radar. I saw the Hordika foot. I'm like, oh, okay, he has the old foot style, whatever. No, they knew what they were doing. Like, they just hadn't made the piece yet. Anyway, it's incredible. I wanted to mention too, with Kalmah specifically, because I've got one of his pieces right here. If you guys are aware of the foot on that set, it is this foot right here, the modified version of the Hordika foot. And I was always surprised that Lego actually modified this piece, because they very easily could have created a completely new mold for the character, and they had a specific aesthetic for the character as well, with this sort of squid-like texture on the tentacles on the back of the head and sort of these rings all over the head and all in the armor. Why wouldn't they do that with the foot as well? This is a squid motif, like it actually is. Now, obviously, it is a Hordika foot, of course, but if you look at the shape of it, right, you could think of these as the long tentacle arms of the squid, and these as sort of like the fins on the side of the squid's head. This is essentially the head of the squid, this is the body, and these are the arms kind of sticking off the bottom. That's so smart, And I love when Lego does stuff like this, where they actually take something and modify what they have, rather than making something new. It sort of fills out their part portfolio, right? You can think of this very, very clearly in CCBS, right? All the shells are essentially the same, just different lengths. And so this is not something that was done a lot in Bionicle. There are a handful of pieces you can very clearly are very clearly inspired by pieces that existed in the past. But suffice to say, let's get right back into it. So yeah, with this one here, it's a really fascinating set nonetheless, and he actually has more callbacks from the Hordika as well, which make me wonder if maybe Lego was planning on these being mutants from the Vaki that had sunk to the sea or something before coming up with, I said Vaki, Vizirac. You know what I'm saying? My brain is soup. But yeah, so let's go ahead and enhance this a little bit so we can kind of see what other pieces are here. Right off the bat, we could tell with these leg pieces, I think those are just sculpted pieces. It's really hard to say exactly what those are, but I don't imagine that they are cut up or modified existing pieces. I can't identify them in any way other than to see that they have this sort of fuzzy, furry texture very similar to what is going on the head here. Maybe that was something that Lego had in their repertoire back in the 2006, 2007, but I can't tell you what it was. You can, of course, identify pretty easily the Picari masks on the shoulders here, which I love. Honestly, that would have been such a cool little gimmick too, to have seen masks used as armor. And I think it would have honestly made these characters look way more brutal. Not to say that they needed it. I think the Baraki are honestly pretty near perfect in terms of set design. There are a couple things maybe I would change, and obviously the fragility issue is its own thing, but you get my point. With that said, though, in terms of other identifiable pieces, on the head, I originally thought this was actually an elliptical Hordika foot. Not Hordika, Inika foot. We're just going to keep going. But no, it's a Parak shield. It is the brown Borak shield piece in here. I don't know if it's brown. It's probably a different color, but clearly it has something else sculpted, put on the top, almost like the face hugger looking thing. I can't tell exactly what it is, of course. It may not even be a Lego piece. Who knows? But in the front of that, you can obviously see the barb pieces. Lego knew that they were going for these sort of teeth attachments in general, which I think is really smart. And in some ways, they're even like callbacks to the Vizirac here, in my opinion. Maybe it's just me, but having the sort of mandible pincher things, them being mutated, maybe they could have been mutated Vizirac themselves, or maybe they were like on their way to becoming Vizirac from what they once were, and this is like a stage in between. It's really interesting stuff. I have no idea. This is entirely speculation. You can see some little tentacle pieces on the back end here, and I feel like are those snakes? I think those are just Lego snake pieces, because don't the snakes have like beefed up tails on them too? Anyway, first time I'm identifying that piece. I thought it was like from like the octopus minifigure animal thing or what. No, I think that's snake pieces. And then we can of course see the staff of light and a Onua claw piece used on the actual mandibles themselves. You can see the evolution even of those pieces. I personally wish that we would have seen two different types of mandible, just so we would have had some variation in there, but I'm not going to complain. I think they're really interesting pieces nonetheless. Then you have the tentacle piece here, which I honestly can't tell you what that is. I don't even want to speculate, but you can very clearly see it is attached to some kind of tail here, a Lego tail very clearly, like the Mantax tail piece, and a connector. They look a little off. They look like their details look a little muddy compared to the details on everything else. So I don't know if this is maybe added in afterward, or if it's actually carrying this as an item and I just can't identify it. Or maybe it's been touched up afterward as well. It's honestly hard to say. He's clearly carrying something in the other hand too, but no matter what I do, I have tried adjusting the highlights and things just to see if maybe there's some contrast in here. But honestly, it's completely obliterated by the this window reflection here. Although I could tell you that it's a window reflection and sort of even see what was going on outside when I affected the highlights and the shadows and stuff. Fun is just play around with this stuff. It's entertaining. So yeah, really interesting stuff. I honestly love it. I clearly love what we ended up getting. I think Kalmah is probably one of the more like boring Baraki sets. That's mostly down to his color scheme just being black and red. It's obviously a color scheme that works very well, but it's not the most exciting thing to look at the end of the day. But he does have a lot of interesting pieces, and he's quite generous with those pieces as well. So although his build is more standard, I guess, the fact that you're seeing so many of those armor pieces tacked onto just one set is honestly pretty awe-inspiring. But that is pretty much it. I guess I will hint at the bootleg thing that I was talking about for a moment there. But yeah, someone had actually gotten a hold of me on Discord, which will be linked in the description below, by the way, if you want to check that out as well, and showed off a handful of bootlegs in their own bootleg collection. And they had so many sets. Like I'm honestly jealous, first of all, of course, but I think the most visually interesting thing, there were two incredible things in this. Rakshi bootlegs that had custom weapons and custom spines. Now, I knew that these were a thing that existed, though I hadn't seen them in a long time and almost completely forgot until they brought it back up again. But I do remember specifically saving a picture of one of these spines when I saw it, because I was like, hold on, is this like a bootleg? Is this a prototype? Like, what is going on here? Is this something someone printed? Because I can't. It looks so good. No, it was a bootleg piece. And perhaps even more interesting, they also had Paraka bootlegs that were entirely recolors. What do I mean by that? Well, they had the colors in the right places, and they were the right colors compared to Lego, I guess. Like there was a red, a black, brown, green, white, and blue Paraka. But they were all mixed up. So like Thok had a white Hakan spine, a regular white Hakan spine, not very light bluish gray. And the quality looked so good on all of this stuff. It's a rubbery material. Now, I don't have experience with any of it, but it even had like dual molded feet. They weren't painted or anything. This company actually took the time to make sure that these pieces and these sets went together really well, and then made them the wrong colors. And part of me thinks, man, was that their intent? Because I think it might have been, right? Maybe that's their way of saying, oh, we didn't copy you. See, ours is different, right? And even more interesting, the sets, the canisters for these sets had the little Paraka head on them, but it was attached to the canister with an axle, so you could use it, and they were flat gold. What? Like, that's insane. Anyway, I don't know. Really cool stuff. Bootlegs are always fascinating to me. I know, you can have whatever ethical, moral dilemma when it comes to bootlegs and stuff like that. At the end of the day, they exist. It's whatever, right? The thing is, I can admire at the very least when a company goes out of their way to do something different, right? Like you can, everybody's seen the whole Masters of Disasters, Bionicle ripoffs, the Dream Builders or whatever, that look really cool. Now the pieces are, I've heard, are honestly kind of crappy, but they look really neat, right? And they're completely different from Bionicle, but you can tell very clearly that they're ripping off Bionicle. It's obvious. But I can respect that, right? And the same is true when a brand decides to just do their own thing with the platform. Yes, they're stealing the pieces. Yes, they're taking the designs or taking the inspiration from the designs. But at the end of the day, when they build their own things with them, are they not just mocking too? Now they're selling it, which, yeah, that's a gray zone. There's definitely some issues there, of course, in terms of legality and stuff, trying to pass it off as your own thing, whatever. But at the end of the day, some really incredible stuff when it comes to the bootlegs, and I am always inspired by what I see. I own, obviously, a handful of bootlegs. There are some brands that are better than others. Some are honestly just trash. Like, they're so brittle, looking at them breaks them. I mean, it puts 2007's Lime to shame. It makes them look like they're, like, I don't even know. I don't have a good analogy. But the point is, bootlegs are, at the very least, interesting. They are a conversation to be had. And that's pretty much it for this one, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I am going to go eat my brain now since it's soup. And I'll see y'all in the next one. As always, Discord and Instagram in the description below. And you can also check out my Patreon if you want to and support me there. I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.